Peace, peace, peace. We back. And I hope everybody following me. And I hope everybody understanding the information and the things that y'all don't understand. Y'all can ask questions. I can ask you questions if I could, to the best of my knowledge. And like I said, welcome back, man. This is the third installment of Rational Lens Podcast, where truth and fact comes into focus. And like I said, the lens is your third eye. We got to recalibrate our third eye so that we can see things the correct way of the way we supposed to see it. But I guess the way we start by getting knowledge yourself and doing some studying and researching so that we can calibrate our lens into the right focus of what it's supposed to be. And in the second installment, we was talking about Tiamat, the fifth dimensional Earth, how she fell, the reason she fell, how we got into this phantom matrix that is hard for us to get out of. And so we was breaking down things of that nature. We was explaining Mother Earth, the electromagnetic grid, how that has a lot to do with us and our conscious, you understand? And we talked a little bit about Nibiru, what Nibiru is, how Nibiru is going to be the one to insert the Christ consciousness back into the electromagnetic grid, which is Tiamat, which is Mother Earth, so it can help rise the consciousness of the people on the planet, help to advance the DNA structure of the people on the planet. You understand? So they can get back to being angelic beings. You understand? So when I left off, we was talking about the reclaiming the Tiamat Logos, right? I guess I'm going to read all this all over again so y'all can get an understanding of it. And here we go. Reclaiming the Tiamat Logos. So what we have to do, we have to reclaim the Tiamat Logos. Remember, like I told you, the Tiamat Logos is the electromagnetic frequency of Mother Earth. Mother Earth has an electromagnetic grid that everything is connected to. Our consciousness is based on this electromagnetic grid. What happened was those disagreeable or malevolent angelic beings who came down from out of the chaos realm, and they brung the lunar consciousness, which is a low vibratorial frequency, which is a negative reverse frequency of consciousness, and they, using their technology, they brung us from a fifth dimension into a third dimension. That third dimension that they brung down was Mother Earth, was Sophia, the woman, the feminine principality, the triple solar feminine. You understand? That part of the electromagnetic frequency they brung down. You understand? And they locked it into a spiritual prison. You understand? So the woman consciousness, of course, as it falls, it caused the imbalancement with the masculine. You understand? It's an imbalancement with the masculine. And so it fell into what I call the whole mentality, the whore mentality, the prostitute mentality, the succubus mentality, the parasite mentality. All these things are dealing with the lunar consciousness or the moon consciousness. You understand? The reason because of that, because it's tied in with the flesh. The flesh is an unwhole vessel. And because the flesh is an unwhole vessel, it always needs and wants to sustain itself. And it urges you to do whatever you need to do to feed those cravings or those desires. And so this is where you get your vampire or your succubus analogy from. These people that have these characteristics of being parasitic, vampiric, or demonic comes from them being in tune with the flesh. And we know that the flesh is created from the moon. And the moon is a lesser light, which makes the flesh a lesser avatar, meaning that it doesn't have the full aspect of itself. It lost aspects of itself. And so it can't sustain itself. And so it has to feed off other things to do that. And so this is how Mother Earth, or Tiamat, fell. And so reclaiming that logos is the only way we're going to get back into our God state, into our God way of being, into our God way of life. You understand? And advancing our body biologically from a 2-string DNA to a more advanced DNA structure, which is a 12-string DNA, which is based on the Christ consciousness, the solar Christ consciousness, if y'all understand what I'm talking about. So we have to reclaim Tiamat, Mother Earth. So Mother Earth and the people on Mother Earth have to in tune with each other. But it's an imbalancement. You understand? So reclaiming Tiamat Logos, right? It says the Blue Rainbow Bridge, right? The Blue Rainbow Bridge, seated in the Holy Mountain architecture discussed last month, has continued to unfold the architecture, has supplied the correct crystal key activation for the universal Melchizedek body, which functioned as a gatekeeper entrance into several intermediary portal systems, hosted by the eternal cosmic Christ, the Emerald founder. The upgrade, you understand? The upgrade has generated an Emerald Order Melchizedek Solar Templar shield for realigning original Sun Star network. So we have to realign ourselves with the Sun, because the Sun is the higher vibration. It's the Christ vibration that we have to connect with. You understand? Realigning original Sun Star network and capstone codes, which allow access into the timeline of pre-fall Nibiru and pre-fall Tiamat. Currently, the Emerald Guardians are inspecting, repairing, and reconfiguring the reclaimed Tiamat Logos, the morphogenetic field. So that electromagnetic field or grid that covers Mother Earth is connected with our DNA. You understand? That's why they call it a morphogenetic field. This morphogenetic field can shape and morph our DNA. And right now, our DNA morphed to a lower consciousness, a lower vibration. Mother Earth is on a lower vibration. This is because the electromagnetic grid or the morphogenetic field is being held down by these satanic, demonic people using their technology or their magic and sorcery to keep us on this lockdown. So it says the reclaiming Tiamat Logos morphogenetic field, which directly impacts the 10th dimension solar star. You hear that? So the Tiamat Logos, which is the electromagnetic aspect of Mother Earth, or what we call the electromagnetic grid that covers the planet, that connects with our DNA, which connects with our consciousness, right, can shape and morph our DNA into a higher vibratorial frequency, into the solar frequency, which is the Christ frequency, which is the 10th dimension solar star. You understand? It says the particular timeline are currently surfacing are connected to the dark alien mother network, which includes the hidden history of the capture and fall of the feminine solar dragons and the region of Gobekli Tepe, with the inversion sourcing from the hijacked White Queen Sophianic consciousness from Tiamat that was embodied as the universal solar Christ Mary Sophias. These are the white solar queens of authentic female ascending masters that were once incarnated on the planet and was protected under the cosmic mother dragon and sold as the Tiamat Logos in the 10th Stargate network. So when we're talking about the fifth dimension, Tiamat, that planet consists of women. And these women were on a high vibratory frequency and tone and sound of energy, of consciousness. They were known as the solar dragons or the mother dragons or the dragon queens. You understand? Or the solar queens. They were the ones that were on the planet at that day and time when Tiamat was in the fifth dimension. You understand? But what happened was they fell into a lunar or a moon state of mind, which is deranged, psychopathic, destruction, mayhem, bloodshed, chaos. You understand? These are all things of the lunar consciousness that we see the planet is in. So whatever state of mind that the woman is in is the same state of mind that the planet is going to be in. So the women have to understand this. The reason why it's chaos and mayhem is because y'all fell from a lower, you understand, and y'all dragged the planet with y'all, and the men. You understand? So the men crazy because the women crazy. Why is that? Because the men come from the women. The women are the ones that set the tone, not the men. They are the mother goddesses. They are the ones that created everything. They're the ones that everything come here on this planet on. So depending on their state of mind, it's what the state of mind of what everything else is going to be. You understand? So we have to understand that. So Tiamat, the logo Tiamat, was originally on a higher solar consciousness. And it was connected with the 10th dimensional solar star. You understand? Connected with the 10th Stargate network. This is the solar star vibration, which is the Christ consciousness or the Sophia Christ consciousness. This is the only thing that can bring things back into balancement with man and woman. The woman has to get back on her Christ consciousness or Sophia consciousness, because then the man is going to follow. And then the planet is going to follow it right along with it and everything else. But if that don't happen, we're going to stay in a lower vibratory frequency. It says, this current phase of the magnetic shift puts a bright spotlight upon the dark shadows of the imposter lunar forces that had replaced the authentic Holy Mother and the solar Christ Mary Sophias present on the planet after their capture and demise. You understand? Right? The supplanting of the imposter forces allowed the subsequent insertion of artificial magnetic field, lunar matrices, and artificial lunar female demonic bodies to be held in place by an artificially generated dark alien mother network. After the invaders systematically hunted down and destroyed the Holy Mother, Sophia, representatives all over the universal time matrix, hijacking her emerald records and the solar Christ Mary wisdom, teachings of spiritual alchemy and biological ascension. It was the women that taught. The women are the true teachers. The women are the true teachers of the family. She's teaching the child and she's teaching the men. She's the one that's going to guide everybody to that higher Christ consciousness. The solar Christ consciousness is based on the woman, because in reality, that solar energy is feminine and it's just manifesting itself as masculine. You understand? So it's the woman that's going to take us up out of this lower vibratory frequency. But first, she has to be able to fight and overpower her demons that's keeping her down. If the woman can't fight her demons that's keeping her down, then the whole planet is going to stay in a lower vibratorial frequency. The man is going to stay in a chaotic vibratorial frequency. All this correlates with the lunar or the moon frequency. What we have to do is get back into the solar frequency, because by nature, we are solar beings. You understand? This solar system, that's why they call it a solar system, came from the sun. You understand? And that sun came from out of the ether, which is the the mental realm, or the mental plane of existence, right? So let's keep on going. Where was I at? All right. So it says, through artificial technology, weapons used to spread satanic forces or parasites throughout the planetary grid, they sought to wreak havoc upon the angelic humanity during the vulnerability of the dark eons. The main technological weapons used to hold up the dark alien mother network was an artificially generated galactic capstone network, holding together several phantom wormholes using the red cube clone version of Tiamat, along with the copies of its entire Edenic code planetary matrix. The capture and cloning of Tiamat Logos was utilized to form several phantom wormholes and phantom matrices connecting into the Earth's second dimension Stargate and sprawling throughout the fourth dimension, seventh dimension, and 10th dimension axial tunnel and ley lines. These phantom matrices were being used as the artificial rods and staff architecture for the dark alien mother Jessel, and by the invading negative alien agenda forces primarily controlling the Thorian Leviathan group. So in other words, what it's saying is that lunar energy, that lunar consciousness that creates chaos, mayhem, destruction, and death, those beings that came from out of the chaos realm and brung that energy, you understand, because they fell into that lunar energy, they created an artificial grid that they placed on the original Christ grid, which was Tiamat. You understand? So the original Tiamat, or the electromagnetic grid of Tiamat, vibrated on the Christ energy, the 10th Stargate, the 10th dimension, which is solar, right? The solar star. But when these chaos beings came in and they brung that lunar consciousness or that moon matrix way of thinking, they created an artificial matrix that they laid on top of the original matrix by using certain technology. You understand? And it was that brung us down into the lower vibratorial frequency. And from there, they were able to carry out their dark alien mother agenda, or their negative alien agenda. You understand? Because this is a way how they keep us down. You understand? On a negative polarity. So what they did was they created an artificial electromagnetic reverse negative polarity grid that they placed on top of the original positive solar Christ grid, which was Tiamat, right? And they brought us down to a third dimension. These negative beings are called Leviathan. Leviathan is one of the demons, you understand, that is known as the beast, the serpent, the beast, you understand, that came from Lucifer. You understand? So when we're talking about Lucifer, Lucifer was an archangel of a higher vibratorial frequency, and he used the satanic energy and that demonic and those demonic frequencies, Leviathan being one of them. You understand? That Leviathan energy that's keeping us on a lower frequency. Matter of fact, let me read this. Give me 1 minute. So y'all can understand what Leviathan is. Leviathan is the aspect of the beast. You understand? 666, they say. The beast, Leviathan. But I want to read this. We'll get back to talking about Tiamat and how she fell. But when we're talking about Leviathan, right? It says, give me 1 minute. It says Leviathan is the primordial sea monster. So when we're talking about the sea monster Leviathan, we're talking about the Loch Ness monster. We're talking about Godzilla. We're talking about the serpent that causes turbulence and chaos in the water. The water being the ether, being the spirit, and Leviathan being that beast that causes the turbulence in the spirit. So when you have turbulence in your spirit, that's the demonic spirit of Leviathan. And Leviathan is the energy of envy. You have 7 deadly sins. Envy is one of those deadly sins, which comes from Leviathan, the beast, the sea monster. And when we see the word monster comes from the word moonster, right? The prefix moon is in monster. So we're dealing with the lunar consciousness, chaos, mayhem, destruction. You understand? Things that are the negative reverse polarity that goes against nature. You understand? So Leviathan is the primordial sea monster coming from out of chaos and bringing the lunar energy, right? The monster. All of your monsters come from out of the lower demonic planes of existence or demonic frequencies, which is known as hell, right? So it says Leviathan is the primordial sea monster that was created by God and is one of the more well-known interpretations of chaos. He is an ancient beast of the seas. So when we talk about the sea, we're talking about the ether. We're talking about the spirit, right? And when we're talking about Leviathan, we're talking about the beast, the monster, the beast that's within your spirit. You understand? Originating from Jewish folklore and different versions of Christian theology, right? In Christian views, it is said to be the demon of envy. So you have 7 deadly sins. One of them is envy. So if you know anybody with that spirit of envy, that's a demon. And that demon is known as Leviathan, that causes turbulence in your spirit, which is the symbol of the waters. You understand? So you wonder why people become envious, because they admire what other people got. And they want what other people got. And because they can't get what other people got, that's what causes the turbulence inside of them. When they can't do what they see other people to do to get what they want, the things that they idolize, they become envious, and that becomes a turbulence within inside them. You understand? It's Leviathan, right? It says in the Christian views, it is said to be the demon of envy, or the embodiment of Satan, and would endeavor sinners during the end of time within the lake of fire. So when it embodies the embodiment of Satan, which the word Satan means adversary, right? Adversity or adversary, somebody that's against somebody, right? And then it said it will endeavor the sinners. So that makes sense, because inside of you, if you deal with envy, that's dealing with Leviathan. Leviathan is the beast, the demonic beast that's inside the spirit that projects envy. So like I said, anybody that has an envy spirit, it's going to cause turbulence inside their spirit. So when they talk about Leviathan being the sea monster, right? Godzilla, the Loch Ness monster, the sea serpent that causes turbulence in the water, that's symbolic of the spirit. The water is the symbolic aspect of the spirit. And the beast that's inside that causes the turbulence is Leviathan, which is the beast, which if you go to the Bible, in the book of Job, it talks about the serpent, the beast of Leviathan, and how to conquer and maintain Leviathan. In other words, it's telling you how to control the beast within inside you, because if you don't control the beast inside of you, it's going to be turbulence to your spirit. So we all saw the Loch Ness monster when it's moving through the water, it causes turbulence and chaos in the water. In the Godzilla movies, when Godzilla is moving through the waters, it's chaos and mayhem. You understand? This is symbolism for the beast inside of you, your lower self, if you don't control it. And the demon of envy, right? Leviathan and envy, right? It's going to cause turbulence in your spirit. And it says it will devour sinners. So that means that beast inside of you, once it creates envy, it can take over your whole being. It can endeavor your whole being. And it says during the end of times within the lake of fire, what is the lake of fire? The lake of fire is your desire. So when they talk about the lake of fire, Christians call it hell, but it's not actually literally a place called hell. What it actually is, it's your desire. If you don't control your desires, it will burn you up. And those desires come from where? It comes from the beast inside of you, the lower self, the fleshly things, the worldly things, right? Which will endeavor you, right? All sinners will be endeavored by the beast inside of them. And the demon of envy, which is one of the 7 deadly sins, which is one of the aspects of Satan. The 7 deadly sins are the different aspects of Satan. So when we're talking about Leviathan, this is what we're talking about. So when we're talking about Tiamat, Mother Earth was known as Tiamat, which was the symbol of the mother dragon, the serpent, right? The dragon symbolizes the energy within inside you. They call it Kundalini energy or prana energy. You understand? In the Hindu and Buddhist culture, they call it prana and they call it Kundalini, which is the electromagnetic energy that's inside of your body that moves from the base of your spine into your brain. This energy was known as the serpent, Leviathan, which can be the beast. The lower aspect, the lower energy can be the beast in you. Everybody have desires. Those desires come from the lower aspect of your chakras, which is your desires, your lower desires, lust, greed, you understand, things of that nature. And that beast inside of you will endeavor you. And the lake of fire is your desire. So when we talk about envy, envy comes from demon, is a demon, which is one of the aspects of Satan. And the word Satan means adversary. Adversary to who? Adversary to God. So you have the God aspect of you and you have the devil aspect of you. That's how come when you look on cartoons, you see the devil on one shoulder and God on the next shoulder, and they're talking to the person, whispering in the person's ear. One saying to do bad, which is connected to your lower desires, your lower self, the Leviathan, the beast inside of you that will endeavor you if you're a sinner, right? And it can embody itself as a demon called envy, jealousy, wrath, hate, lust, so forth. You understand? So we have to be mindful of our lower desires, because those lower desires are connected to our flesh. And the flesh is unwhole. The soul is whole, because the soul is an aspect of God. The flesh is unwhole. That's why the flesh always needs something. And when something is unwhole, it always needs something. So the more you become in tune in the flesh, the more you lose aspects of yourself. The more you lose aspects of yourself, the more you need, the more you want. Because you're going down into your lower self, the beast, the lower chakra, which deals with lower desires. You understand? And so you become more whole the more you identify with this body. You become, I should say, more unwhole. And the more you become more unwhole, the more you become a succubus, the more you become a vampire, the more you become a demon, because those things of the flesh can't sustain itself. It needs something to feed on. That's why we have to drink. That's why we have to eat. That's why some of us need sex. That's why we need drugs. All the things we become addicted to is connected because of the flesh, and because the flesh is unwhole, and it was created by the moon. And what I mean that the flesh was created by the moon, the woman goes through a menstrual cycle that's governed by the moon. And so that clot, that blood clot that creates a life, that creates a person, is governed by the lunar energy, the lunar consciousness, which is the reverse polarity. And it deals with jealousy, envy, hate, wrath, lust, slothfulness, all those things of a lower vibration. So I wanted to explain that to y'all. And I wanted to explain that because this is how the earth fell down to its lower third dimension. Remember, Tiamat was a fifth dimension, and it fell to the lower dimension because those negative, malevolent, angelic beings or demonic beings who came out of the chaos realm, who brung the lunar matrix or the lunar consciousness or the lunar mind state, which is self-destruction, chaos, mayhem, bloodshed, right? They were the ones that created the artificial matrix that they placed on Mother Earth to bring her down from a higher fifth dimension to a lower dimension. You understand? And by using their technology, they brought us down into this lower vibratorial thing. And this is how Tiamat, Mother Earth, fell. So when they talk about the fall in the Bible, this is what they're talking about. And when they're talking about Leviathan, Leviathan is the beast that's inside of you, your lower self, that the flesh and the devil is connected with. And that devil is inside of you. So all this, the devil lives under the ground, and the devil is you. God is you. You're responsible for your own decisions in life and how you choose. This is what they call free will. Choose good or you're going to choose bad. When you choose bad, you're dealing with the devil in you. You're dealing with Leviathan, the beast inside you. Jealousy, envy, hate. If you're dealing off those lower vibratorial energies, those demonic energies, then you're dealing with Satan. You're dealing with in other words, you're being adverse to what God is. You're being negative to what God is. That's all the devil is. That's all Satan is. It's the adverse of polarity. And if you're being adverse to what God is, then that means that you're dealing with the devil inside of your spirit. And Leviathan, the beast that brings turbulence in the waters symbolizing the spirit, and Leviathan being the beast or the demon inside of you that manifests as envy, that manifests as jealousy, hate, greed, lust, slothfulness, so forth. So we have to be control of our own self. Because if not, we're going to keep on living in this chaos and mayhem. That's how come in Genesis, when it says that man, in Genesis it said man, God said man has become like us, knowing good and evil. That's what that meant. The polarity. We have the free will to choose. If you're dealing with the positive vibration, the magnetism that brings things together, then you're dealing with God. If you're dealing with those good qualities, those good moralities and principalities, then you're in tuning with God. Then you're in tuning in the way that the universe and everything in nature moves. But if you're in tuning with the other part of yourself, which is the evil, then you're dealing with Satan. Then you're going against the God self. That's all Satan means. Satan means adverse. And when you're going against love, peace, harmony, justice, freedom, you understand? These high moralities, when you're going against that, then you're going against God. You understand? When you start dealing with jealousy, envy, and hate, and wrath, and slothness, and things of that nature, then you're dealing with the devil side. So you have the solar side, the solar Christ, which is the positive polarity, right? Magnetism. And then on the other side, you have the lunar consciousness, which deals with Satan, and the reverse polarity, negative. You understand? So it's in you. It's not something to look outside of, and God's in heaven and the devil's a no. It's inside of you, and it's right here in what they call your solar plex. So when we're talking about the logos, the Christ logos, or the electromagnetism of Tiamat, this is what we're talking about. In humans, it's inside their chest. So let me finish on reading about Tiamat and the fall of Tiamat. It says, retrieving hidden history of Tiamat. It says, for many years, the guardian host has been guiding us into observing the hidden timeline of the negative alien agenda invasion in order to comprehend many of the mysteries surrounding the missing spiritual body part of the universal Holy Mother and her Sophianic triple solar daughters of the Christ Sophia, right? This has necessity conscious observation of the theft of the Emerald Founding Records and the massacre of the solar feminine Yana identity, along with the Diamond Sun blueprint from the Tiamat Logos. They were later uphold into AI Thothian brain. These hijacked consciousness bodies parts of the solar Christ Mary identity was being utilized in an assorted clone hologram designed to run Baphomet, right? We know what Baphomet is. Baphomet is the goat head with the human body, but the Baphomet is the symbol of androgyny, going back again, positive and negative, man and woman, yin and yang, male and female. So when we see the Baphomet, it's not satanic. It's the androgynous aspect of your true self, which is your God self. Because the true aspect of God is the androgynous good and evil. He said it in the Bible. In Genesis, man has become like us, knowing good and evil. That's your androgynous self. So when we talk about the Baphomet, the goat being the beast, the low desires that's inside of you, and then you have the man body, which is the higher aspect of you. You understand? You can build or destroy. That's right. They call it the spell of Leviathan. We just was talking about what Leviathan is. Leviathan is the beast within inside you. That's how come when you see the Loch Ness Monster, Godzilla, these sea creatures that cause turbulence in the water is the spirit, and the Leviathan is the Kundalini energy that comes from the lower chakra that creates jealousy, envy, hate, greed, lust. You understand? And it can cause turbulence in your spirit. That's how come when you're dealing with these demonic spirits, you feel that turbulence within inside yourself. That's how you know you're dealing with lower demonic spirits. If you always feel that turbulence inside of yourself. That's Leviathan. And if you follow that, then you're under the spell of Leviathan. And Leviathan deals with the lunar consciousness, the moon matrix. It's the beast, which they call 666, the beast. You understand? It says, this has necessitated conscious observation of the theft of the emerald founding records and the massacre of the solar feminine Yana identity, along with their demonic sun blueprint from the Tiamat Logo. There were later uploads into the AI Thorthian brain. These hijacked consciousness body parts of the solar Christ Mary identity was being utilized in an assorted clone hologram designed to run Baphomet screams and AI red cube manipulation across the globe. Craftily using the female principle inversion in order to generate mind control weapons used to further subdue humanity and derail the planetary collective awakening. So in other words, women, something y'all have to understand, Satan is using y'all because he know the Christ Sophia energy. He know what it's about. He understand it. And he know through the woman, he can keep the whole planet in prison, in this lower vibratorial frequency, in this phantom matrix. So this is what y'all have to understand. Satan knows through the woman, he can keep the whole planet, this whole realm in prison, as long as he can keep her in the state of Leviathan, chaos, mayhem, and destruction. Dealing with the lunar aspect of herself. You understand? This is the reason why a woman gets a period. The woman didn't naturally get a period. When she was a solar being, when she was a Christ Sophia being dealing with the sun, she didn't get a period because she was mostly into her spiritual self. She was a spiritual being. She didn't identify with the flesh. But the more she got in tune with the flesh and became sexualized with her face and her breasts and her body, the way it's shaped, and her butt, then she became lunarized by the moon, the lunar consciousness. And the more she became identified with the flesh, the more she lost aspects of her goddess self, or her solar goddess self. And so this is the reason why a woman get a period. The reason she get a period is because her mind and energy is more focused in her physical than in her spiritual body. She's more into how she look, makeup and how her hair done and how she's dressed and all this other, the sexualization of herself, than the spiritual aspect of herself. If she reverses that and she becomes more spiritual and lock in more with her spirit and her soul and the Christ consciousness, which is the solar consciousness, she won't get a period anymore. So the only reason she get a period is because she's in tune with the physical body. And Satan knows that. And so that's how come Satan can control and manipulate her. And through controlling and manipulating her, he's controlling the whole planet, keeping the whole planet in prison. You understand? So I hope y'all understand that. So I'm going to come back with the fourth installment. And I hope y'all follow me. And welcome to Rational Lens Podcast. Please subscribe and press the like button. Go to my YouTube page and put in Rational Lens Podcast, and you'll get all my lectures, all my stuff that I'm building and teaching on. You understand? I'm trying to get a certain amount of followers so that I can really go live on YouTube, and I only can do that through your help. So please go to Rational Lens Podcast. And I'll be back with the 4th installment.